To sum up, we have said that we are going to devote our scientific effort to studying the processes of social cooperation, and that the leading role in those processes is played by human beings who act. These are men and women like you and me, who are endowed with an innate, creative, entrepreneurial capacity. In prehendo, prehendi, prehensum. A capacity for what? We are capable of discovering or creating new information, new knowledge, regarding the ends worthwhile to us, and the means we believe are available to us to achieve them. In this introduction, we stated that we are going to approach the concept of entrepreneurship from two perspectives. At first, from the perspective of a broader definition, and then from that of a stricter one. We begin with the broad definition and indicated that in a general sense, the idea of human action coincides with that of entrepreneurship. We exercise our entrepreneurship when we act. Human beings act to modify the present, the circumstances of which we consider unsatisfactory, and try to achieve something we value more highly in the future. We defined action as all deliberate human conduct. We excluded from the idea of action behaviors that are not conscious. We talked about the behavior of animals and sleepwalkers, etc. We considered how surprising it is that the idea of human action is identified here with that of entrepreneurship. From a young age, when we speak of an entrepreneur or an enterprise, we are referring to something much more mundane. A business firm, a company, a bank, a construction company. This is what enterprise meant to us. However, we saw that from ancient times, enterprise has carried the etymological meaning of action. The fourth meaning for empresa, enterprise, in the dictionary of the Spanish Royal Academy, an arduous and difficult action valiantly undertaken. We looked at the etymological origin of the term enterprise, in prehendo, prehendi, prehensum, a Latin verb that means to discover, to create, to seize. So it refers to an action. We saw that in the Middle Ages, the term empresa was used to indicate valiant actions. We even read an excerpt from Don Quixote. Cervantes wrote that as Don Quixote was leaving his house, he suddenly realized that he should not yet have a device, empresa, upon his shield. Empresas were insignias that knights displayed to show they had committed themselves, under oath, to undertake a brave action, specifically to protect widows, fight knaves and scoundrels, and right wrongs. We saw that this etymological tradition has spread throughout Europe. In Portugal, an empreiteiro was and is a builder. In France, entrepreneurs were originally those in charge of building cathedrals. Also, we made a digression and discussed the evolutionary origin of languages, which are institutions that emerge and are alive because millions of human beings use them. We saw that English is the most dynamic language nowadays, and that a large part of its dynamism, flexibility and attraction derives from the fact that when an English speaker lacks a term, he or she has no qualms about borrowing a term from another language. Thus, in English, entrepreneur means the same as empresario in Spanish, and was taken straight from French. After this introduction, we moved on to the essential elements of the idea of human action. This is where we rolled up our sleeves and began to delve deeper into the sphere of economics. We introduced some concepts which provide the foundation for our entire discipline. The first concept, the first essential element of human action, is the concept of an end. The end is everything the actor intends to achieve with his or her action. Why? Well, because the actor attaches value to that end, and this is the second element of human action. Value is the more or less psychically intense appreciation that the actor assigns to his end. We all pursue ends because we attach value to them. They attract us like a magnet. We touched on how difficult it is to find adequate terms to describe such abstract realities. Nevertheless, we have an advantage. We are examining our own nature as human actors, and thus everyone knows firsthand what an end is and what value is, for we are constantly acting, and we know by experience what an end is. So, end and value. Human beings, when they discover or create, and we said that discover and create are synonyms that refer to the same thing from the standpoint of economics, when they discover a worthwhile end to which they attach value, they immediately seek out or create means available to them in order to accomplish that end. Means is the third essential element of the idea of human action, the concept of means. The means is like the bridge that connects us with the end we wish to achieve. To illustrate the importance of the concept of utility, I took a 10-euro bill and destroyed it in class. So, to a greater or lesser extent, everyone's blood ran cold. Am I right? What I was trying to achieve was precisely that. With that action, my end was to communicate an important idea to the students in such a way that they will never forget it. Means, I will take a 10-euro bill and rip it up in front of everyone. Note that ultimately, in physical terms, it was almost nothing. A piece of paper, a piece of cellulose with ink printed on it. But we all felt our blood run cold because we all needed those 10 euros. We all had in mind what we could have done with 10 euros. And the professor goes and rips up the bill. Maybe somebody picked up the pieces. What we did was to project the value we attached to any sort of end onto a specific means that would have allowed us to achieve that end. And I think that is precisely the message that was engraved in our minds and that we will never forget. And we said that means, by definition, must be scarce, which is the fifth essential element. What does this communicate? It communicates that the actor believes the means available to him or her are not sufficient to achieve all of the ends the actor is pursuing. Notice that the concept of scarcity, just like the concept of ends, means, value, and utility, is subjective, in the sense that it is the subject, the actor, the man or woman involved in an action in a specific concept, who creates, discovers, determines, the one who values or feels the need or urge to achieve an end. This is the person who discovers or creates the means and assigns utility to it. The concepts of value and utility cannot be objectively observed from the outside. An outside observer cannot decide what has value and what does not. He or she cannot simply pontificate like an academic or a public official or a bureaucrat. No, it is you, each and every one of you, when you act, when you perform your concrete actions, that creates the end, seeks out the means, and assigns value and utility to them. The same is true of the concept of scarcity. I gave the example that something that is very scarce in physical terms can be overabundant if no one desires it. I offered the example of a grain of sand from a hypothetical beach in Japan.